When we posted our videos on our France trip, we got a lot of response from people who'd heard of cycling the Loire and wanted to know more about it. And for good reason. The Loire Valley is an amazing place to visit on its own, but way, way better on a bike. So we decided to put together a beginning-to-end guide for this amazing bike route based on our tour of the Loire and some of what you might expect on your tour. Although the Loire itself begins many miles further upstream, the bicycle trail known as Le Loire à Vélo begins near the small city of Nevers and follows the Loire, considered France's last great wild river, to its estuary in the Atlantic Ocean at Saint-Nazaire. It includes over 900 kilometers of cycle route, 630 direct from Nevers to the Atlantic, and another 270 miles of deviation routes along the way. I believe we spent over 2 weeks riding it, but we enjoyed rest days when we could get them, and more importantly, we took our time. You really can't ride this trail slow enough. More than any bike tour I can think of, the Loire is one to slow down and savor. Between Nevers and the Atlantic, you'll experience the heart of France, riding through verdant pastoral countrysides, flourishing orchards and vineyards, and unpretentious villages and towns. The valley is known as France's Valley of Kings due to its magnificent chateaus. In fact, the entire stretch between Sully-sur-Loire and Chalon-sur-Loire has been named a UNESCO World Heritage Site. If you're a lover of castles and palaces, you will never run out of things to see. Perhaps a third of the route is on cycle paths, some paved, some dirt or gravel, some cobbled. The rest is on roads, but those are easily negotiated, with light traffic and considerate drivers. The entire route is well signposted, although with the many deviations it's not hard to get confused from time to time. For the most part, however, you'll find the route to be easy to follow, safe, relaxing, and with few climbs, an absolute breeze to ride. There are over 700 accommodations listed as accueil vélo, or welcome cyclists along the route, from camping and guest houses to reasonably priced hotels, most with a fabulous breakfast included, and although the French tourism site suggests you book in advance, especially in the summer months, in late summer we were always able to find something the day of. Getting around outside of cycling is uncomplicated as well. From Orléans through to Nantes, there's a train known as the Interloire, complete with a dedicated car for bicycles, which you can use to ferry yourself back to your car or point of departure. loireavelo.fr is a great website to get you familiar with the route and can point you to bicycle-friendly hotels, campgrounds, bicycle services, and must-see destinations along the way. France has made it simple for cycle tourists to explore and enjoy this outstanding region by bike. We began our cycling tour in Nevers, arriving by train. There's a direct route to Nevers from Paris, but from Zurich it took us 3 connections and most of a day on the train. Nevers is known for its medieval architecture and the small but mighty Nevers Cathedral.
Anybody for a little confession?
We had difficulty finding the beginning of the route to Nevers, which may have been due to first-day jitters and the newness of the language, but upon asking for directions from the locals, they seemed confused as well. Also, if I'm not mistaken, the official trail starts just outside of Cuffy, a few miles to the west of Nevers. In any case, once on the trail, you'll be greeted with idyllic French canal landscapes, clearly marked trails, and soon enough, broad views of the Loire itself. In Pouilly-sur-Loire, we had an exceptional meal, along with the highly regarded local poulet fumé wine. Eating well is something you'll just have to get used to if you decide to ride this route. To put it simply, the food is some of the best you will enjoy anywhere. Night after night, we had some of the most amazing meals of our lives. The Loire is truly a culinary tour. One of the highlights early on in your journey will be Sancerre, off the route a few miles and up a challenging and steady climb, but well worth the effort. It's a hill town with outstanding views of the surrounding countryside, great architecture, and an enchanting centre-ville. Leaving Sancerre, you'll ride over a spectacular train viaduct, converted into a bike trail, that takes you north into the vineyards. The wine produced from these vineyards, by the way, is absolutely amazing. Some of the time you'll find yourself riding along canals with their distinct imprint on the land. Small villages line the way with lots of parks and way stops to enjoy a bit of cheese and bread and fruit. And then the river will open up, and once again you'll feel a sense of almost wildness. There are numerous crossings over the river, and the bridges are often works of art in themselves. Here you cross the Loire over the Briare Aqueduct, for many years the longest navigable aqueduct in the world, and an absolute masterpiece of civil engineering. Attractive cities like Briare and Gien show beautifully across the river, and are easily accessible for those with the time to explore. But mostly you'll find yourself stumbling into villages you may never know the names of, but will fall in love with nonetheless. The ride into Sully-sur-Loire is beautiful, as much of the route through this section is on levees, with long stretches of trail that provide expansive views of the French countryside. But the arrival into town is the stuff of fairy tales, with the Chateau de Sully-sur-Loire rising impressively from its moat. It's an old castle, dating back to 1102, but has been deconstructed, reconstructed, and modified over the centuries. North of Sully, the route opens up a bit with clear views of the Loire abundant with wildlife.
Bird watchers. Don't know what they're looking for, but along here there's lots of birds.
As you move north, the trail markings also improve, with lots of signage. It seems whenever you find yourself at a confusing fork, there's a sign, as if it was expecting you. You'll also see lots of mistletoe, a first for me, and more cyclists, often in tour groups, doing exactly what you're doing, enjoying this little slice of paradise. You enter Orléans along the beautiful 18th century George V Bridge with its many arches. It was an earlier bridge over the river that made medieval Orléans one of France's 3 richest cities of the era, along with Paris and Rouen. Famous for the Joan of Arc saga, Orléans is the first of the bigger cities you'll ride through, going east to west. It's a very walkable city with a lovely medieval centre-ville.
Little French karaoke for you?
Orléans is the northernmost point on the Loire and where the route arcs to the west. As you head west, you'll encounter more orchards and gardens and cornfields, and of course, vineyards, and more crossings of the river on those lovely bridges. From Orléans, it's an easy ride to Chambord, the first of the region's numerous great chateaus, situated on one of the many route deviations. It's easy to take a side trip to any of the Loire chateaux, as the roads are mostly quiet, and Komoot or any routing app can find you a lovely course to take. If touring chateaus is your thing, you could spend days in this region, but with over 300 to choose from, each with their own highlights and tour hours, you'll want to do some pre-planning. We'll leave the tours of the chateaus for other YouTube videos, and just say, good luck choosing. Blois, with 45,000 people, is your next city on the route. It sits beautifully on the banks of the Loire, with a grand old stone bridge that you cross over to reach the town. The medieval center is hilly and fun to explore, although it can be a bit challenging on a loaded bike. West of Blois, you ride through more orchards and cornfields, more and more vineyards, and of course, village after village. Now this all may sound repetitive, but it never feels that way, and you wake up each day eager to see more. This is an area of incredible abundance, and every mile seems fresh and alive. If you're thinking about riding the Loire, a question you've probably asked yourself is, when is the best time to go, weather-wise? No surprise here, spring and fall are considered prime, although summertime highs rarely make it into the 80s. Still, we were there in the last week of August, and we had several days well into the 90s, so you never really know. Wind can be a problem, and be prepared to deal with some windy days. It typically blows from the Atlantic, west to east, so many riders also choose to ride in that direction.
Really windy right now on the way to Villandres. Beautiful day otherwise, though.
Speaking of weather, we even got a little rain coming into Amboise, another of these small cities that dot the Loire. Leonardo da Vinci spent his last years here, and his tomb is in the chapel of Saint-Hubert. There's an imposing castle over the old town, a nice riverfront and bridge, and a quaint medieval city center, although to be honest, the tourism vibe is a bit strong here. Leaving Amboise, your next stop is Tours, another bigger city with a metropolitan population of 500,000. It's large enough that you definitely feel relieved to leave it behind and head back into that sweet French countryside. Villandry is one of the loveliest towns on the entire Loire, clustered with storybook houses and lorded over by the Grand Chateau de Villandry with its famous Renaissance gardens. Absolutely stunning. As you continue on your westward trek, you might consider taking the short side trip to Chateau d'Ussé, the inspiration for Charles Perrault's Sleeping Beauty. Even from the outside, it's easy to see how this magnificent structure inspired the author. The route proceeds through lush and lovely countryside, through vineyards and fields of sunflowers and the ever-present villages. This region is commonly called the Garden of France, and it's no wonder. If you happen to be riding on a Saturday, make a point of stopping at the outdoor markets for fresh fruits, vegetables, cheeses, meats, or other goodies. Before you reach Saumur, look for the route deviation that takes you past the troglodyte caves east of town. It's a bit of a climb from the lower trail, but absolutely worth it. The caves are used by artisans, and if you're lucky, you can catch a festival along the way. After a very steep climb, the route takes you from the valley floor to a plateau over the river, filled with vineyards and villages. In Souzé-Champagnat, the route even takes you into and through medieval troglodyte caves, beneath what seems to be a chateau or abbey. It's an experience you won't soon forget.
This is so cool.
Then through the lovely woods before you reach the town of Saumur itself, with its lovely medieval centre-ville. Many of the villages here are full of discoveries, like Trèves, just a few miles northwest of Saumur. Take a break to explore the Église Notre-Dame or Église Saint-Aubin, where you'll be transported into a quiet and utterly mysterious world. You can ride the Loire from chateau to chateau, an architectural greatest hits tour of medieval France. But certainly a big part of the magic of this route is that you often happen upon an unexpected find that illuminates your soul, where everything seems intimate and radiant. Make sure you take the time for your own discoveries, not just the must-sees. Many of the sights the tour books ignore will take your breath away. With over 500,000 people in the metro area, Angers is the next city you'll ride through. Angers sits a bit north of the Loire, but the route makes the effort to go through the city, and so should you. It has a lovely medieval town center with great architecture, and the Chateau d'Angers is impressive and imposing. It's a short ride from Angers back to the Loire along rustic trails. Over one of the many crossings, you'll run across the Mine de Charbon de la Tranchée, or the trench mine, which has been in operation since the 1500s. Even the old mines here hold a monumental status. Many miles of French scenery, many lovely bridge crossings, and many idyllic villages later, you will find yourself pulled into the vortex of Nantes, whose metropolitan area boasts 1 million souls. Of course you'll find the cathedral and the chateau, but you'll also find the delightful steampunk outdoor museum Les Machines d'Ile, with its curious collection of animated animalia. While Nantes is on the Loire, it's basically at sea level and is a port city. But to emphasize the lack of elevation change on this route, your starting point back in Nevers is only some 180 meters higher. Less touristy perhaps than other French cities of its size, Nantes is a fun and laid-back stopover before you make that final push to the sea. From here, you're only some 35 miles from Saint-Nazaire, the official end of the Loire. Depending which particular deviation you take out of Nantes, you will probably find yourself on a ferry that takes you to the south side of the river. Now you're riding through the lowlands, with canals and waterways in all directions. At some point, the route takes you on a gravel path among the fens, with views of the broad Loire estuary and the imposing Saint-Nazaire Bridge. Soon the Atlantic comes into view. When you've reached the 130-foot-long ocean serpent, an immense sculpture that represents the point where the Loire meets the Atlantic, you know that you have reached the end of your journey. From here you can catch a train by either riding over the bridge to Saint-Nazaire, 6 miles to the north, or to Pornic, 12 miles to the south. Or simply ride the 38 miles back to Nantes. Or perhaps you'll just continue on your journey wherever that may take you. Whether you're an experienced bicycle tourist or a complete novice, whether doing a self-contained tour or doing an organized group ride, the Loire is a fabulous route with lots of history, beautiful scenery, and the kind of experiences that make for lasting memories. Until next time, enjoy the ride. If you've enjoyed this short guide to the Loire and would like to see more, check out our series on our France tour, where we go much more in depth, not only on touring the Loire, but also along the Atlantic, down the Canal de Garonne and the Canal du Midi, and up the Via Rona. Bon voyage and happy trails.